Welcome back to Disrupting the Algorithm, a monthly check in with our Disruptors Network where we talk to alumni, past mentors, instructors, actors, directors, and anyone who has been part of our Disruptors family. My name is Julio Salgado, and I am the co creator of the Disruptors Fellowship, a program of the Center for Cultural Power, where I also serve as a senior program manager. For today's guest, we have the incredible, talented writer, actor, model, intersex activist, and overall New Jersey baddie, River Gallo. Hi, River. How are
Hi,
you?
wow, New Jersey baddie. I think
Yes.
I'm gonna take that on now.
I mean, we'll get into your film, but
Right.
I cannot. And now, every time I hear New Jersey, I think River. But let me
Thank
finish
you.
your introduction. Let me
Okay,
give you all of your flowers.
please.
River has starred in multiple short films and stage productions. They made the Out 100 list, won a GLAAD Rising Star Media Award, was named one of the 10 LGBTQIA plus film and TV creators on the rise in 2023 by IndieWire. River was profiled in the documentary Everybody, where they share their experiences as someone who is intersex. More recently, River starred and wrote Ponyboy, a queer crime thriller. I love that queer crime thriller that follows a young intersex sex worker named Ponyboy who works at a laundromat with their pregnant best friend Angel. Ponyboy had its premiere at Sundance last year, and I was there, and it's set to hit theaters across the country on June 27th. River, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Honestly, I used to like shirk at hearing my bio, but now I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's because it's my birthday in like 2 days. I'm like, yes, feeling the soul of return energy. And I'm like, yeah, I did all those things. Those are all true things that are a part of my life. And I'm really proud of them. And also just so excited to talk to you and this full circle moment of being part of the Disruptors and now, seeing my career take off. It's really meaningful to me.
No, and River, as you should, because I don't know. I mean, as an immigrant myself, like we are told, or coming from the Latino community, there's this sort of like you have to be like I don't know, like not show off or,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, no, we're also in an industry that you kind of have to constantly be naming your resume. But
Yeah.
I'm happy that you're leaning on that, and there's so many more things that you are going to be working on, and this is just the beginning. And
Period.
just to get into sort of what's happening right now, times are very interesting. Tell me, River, what is a piece of art? It could be a book, it could be an artist, it could be a TV show, that you are consuming right now, and it's bringing you some smiles to your face.
Mm. Okay. So I am a homosexual, and if you didn't know,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Same.
I'm one of my biggest pop girlies is Lord, and I'm so thrilled about her new single that she came out and her new song that she came out. And I don't know, something about her work really speaks to me because she's like so fearlessly like vulnerable and like is like a Scorpio, and so her work is really like she like analyzes and probes into her like psyche and psychology and her past experiences to a certain depth that is like provocative and but also really joyful as well. And I remember when I had meetings with publicists last year for Sundance, I told my publicist, I was like, I want to have the image of like a pop star who is actually an actor. And something about like her pop stardom feels so inspiring to me because it's like you could make stuff that is um, populist and popular, but also still stay true to like a really deep and profound inner message that doesn't that's so beneath the surface and still I don't know I just love that about her and so yes I've been listening to her one single nonstop on the treadmill and just feeling like yeah like fuck the past. I'm here in the present and like I'm so thrilled for what's coming next.
I love that. And I is that the single with the video where like she's running around and it's in New York City in the video?
Oh, well, I haven't seen the video yet, but she did have a moment where she went to Washington Square Park and
Yes.
and to release her single and like all these like Lord fans showed up and then she like played it for them and they all like freaked out. And it's like, and I think that's what I love about her too. It's like she's so about like the people and about like not having this air of like I'm separate from you. And I think that's something that I try to um a value of mine as well.
And she's silly because I remember who's one of the late night show hosts, I think Seth Meyers, who has that getting drunk, and she was a guest. And I always saw Lord as someone super serious, but she was a guest. You know the where she gets, they drink, they do drinking games. Rihanna
No,
was
but I need to see this
Oh my
now.
God, watch the Lord episode.
Okay.
And she like I had never seen an interview of hers, but she's so silly. I mean, when you get drunk, you get silly, but the
Right.
fact that somebody, at her level of pop stardom, is down to be silly, it's like that's what people, because I think right now with the internet and the accessibility that fans have to the artist, like any kind of plastic it gets turned down easily, so being able to be yourself, like
Totally.
it's gotta be some, it's gotta be nice,
Totally.
especially for pop artists. But I love that being an actor who's a pop star. I
A
love
pop star aura, but an actor.
I
You know what
love
I mean?
love
Yeah.
um Now, you kind of started mentioning this, River, that this is kind of like a full circle moment.
Mhm.
I always say that the people, the alumni, and the folks that come through the program, like we are not teaching you how to be an artist. Like you bring the talent. We're just a pit stop for you all to
Right.
rest, get some resources, work on your craft. But can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a Disruptors Fellow, especially because you were part of the first cohort during the pandemic? Like, do you remember some of those times
Yeah.
that we were?
I remember. I remember logging. I mean, it was 2020. It was literally like the height of like the Black Lives Matter protests. Like I could sometimes hear them happening outside of my like window in Hollywood. And it was such a lifeline at the time because of lockdown and like it was like just when like there was some sort of protocol. So like we weren't completely like shut in, but we definitely still had to like line up for places and like mask up everywhere. And I just remember it being such a safe space to be around like, other artists of color and just be I think having gone to a lot of like film school and acting school, you get a little spoiled in the fact that like when you're making work, it doesn't always feel like you're making it within community, or that you have community support. And it's something that as I've worked more in this industry, I'm like, oh man, those small pockets of time or small circles where you do have that like emotional and like psychic connection with people because they've shared similar experiences to you. It's so rare and it's like the most I could ever hope for whenever I, start a new project or play or whatever it is. It's just like as long as like I fuck with the people and they're like they feel like homies from like on a soul level, like that is just the most I could ask for. And so, yeah, I think at the time I didn't even realize how unique and rare that moment was and how much it helped me, yeah, just have a little launch pad for a moment in time when I think at the time I was starting to pitch the feature film of Ponyboy out to places and to like, yeah, varying degrees of uh, people responding to it or not. So it was just really helpful to be able to have a creative outlet and that support. And yeah, there was something else I wanted to say, but I recently got diagnosed with ADHD, so
The reality of that,
honey.
my husband is constantly telling me I need to go get evaluated because but I was like, I think a lot of us, being
Yeah,
undiagnosed, but
yeah,
that is real. And
right.
I'm so happy to hear that, River, because when we were at that time we were making the transition from in person to to virtual, doing virtual. I was like, how is this? This is my first time running a program like this. I was like, your life it was throwing us a lot of things, but the fact that you all responded the way that you did, which was like leaning into like, hey, we're all stuck at home. Let's play together from, Zooms. And by the way, like thank you for, you casted me in your showcase at the end of every program. We have a showcase, and this was all virtual showcases, and I got to play one of your characters, so it was an honor. Now, as an artist, myself, who is influenced by both my queerness and being an immigrant, I always say that there's a blessing and a curse when you share so much of yourself, right? Like for you, what are some blessings and curses you've seen as a result of being so outspoken about being an activist and an artist? Have you seen some positive and negatives? Maybe you want to focus more on the positives.
The negatives are coming to me right now, so I'll talk about that. I mean, it's this thing of like, and I think this is anybody who creates personal work, regardless of, what kind of background they have or identities that they ascribe to. Like when you make personal work, there starts to be this weird kind of feeling of like not knowing where your work starts and your life ends, and that separation, that permeability of the art being a mirror of where you are and you being a mirror of where your art is, and that like reflexive quality is really uh kind of can be unnerving sometimes. And but honestly, the more after making Ponyboy, I realized like, oh, I don't see another option with the type of work that I want to make. Like if you want to make whatever studio thing and make a lot of money and it be, less personal to you, like that, pop off girl. But like for me, like I just have to like really care about my work because it takes so long to make and there's so many conversations involved with it. And then I have to, for me, I have to know that it's going to have some kind of medicinal quality to the world and provide some kind of antidote to like the maladies that are the social maladies that are happening. And I just and for or in order for me to be able to make work that has that deeper level, I just know, at least in this stage of my life, like I have to throw myself in the ring a little bit and create something um that I have personally struggled with, or I'm currently wrestling with those questions, um, in order to figure something else out. I've just started to think more and more how like my work feels kind of like I'm a scientist in a laboratory and like kind of experimenting with like, okay, if I add in this this piece of my life that I feel needs to be addressed for my own personal healing or for my own curiosity. And I add this kind of inspiration of like a world or time period or character, and like what what is going to be the reaction of those two happening at the same time, or three elements, four elements, whatever. And I, I remembered what I wanted to say. There was something that Fabiana said in the Disruptors, um, when we were meeting, that has always stuck to me, and I have said it in so many interviews. But she said how essentially like culture is always 15 years before, or 15 years ahead of legislation. And she cited so many examples of how that is like literally true. And so for me, I just am always thinking about like, where is the cutting edge, and where is that kind of boundary that needs to be pushed or disrupted. And just having that at the forefront of my mind of why I'm doing something. I had a teacher in theater school that said about theater, he was like, a theater piece, he was like, tell me something I don't know. Like that a theater piece should tell you something you don't already know. And I think a good theater piece or a good work of art does that, even if it's like a revival of a work, or an adaptation. It reveals something that hasn't already been revealed before, a truth that is new to the world, maybe only because I'm doing it or you're doing it, or it's your specific point of view. Like, um, so that's always like, I'm always thinking about that when I work, of like, how is this work telling the world something they don't already know? Or how is it reminding us about something that we've forgotten? And how that reminder or revelation can then create societal change, maybe 10 years or 5 years or 15 years, as Fabiana eloquently says. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I mean, Fabiana always dropping the gems. Shout out Fabiana Rodriguez, who was the co-founder of the Center for Cultural Power. And I mean, the fact, I always say, the fact that we get to make art, and on top of that, bringing our own, whatever we're dealing with, and play with it and mess around with it in public. It's both a responsibility, but also like you're one story. There's this idea also that the responsibility that you have to speak on behalf of the whole community. It's like, girl, I'm just trying to tell a story where I'm messy, but I'm also part of this things as well, right? And so I love that you're in your work, you approach it very, very that way. So I thank you for that. Now let's talk about the fact that this country right now is hella divided. Even I would even say our own LGBTQI plus community included. Lots of the girls are fighting. In 2023, you were featured in the documentary Everybody, and you dive into your experiences as the I part of LGBTQI plus community. What has been some of the response to your participation in that film? Like what did you learn, from being part of that film as you were telling your story? Because that's being part of a documentary, you open up yourself, so much of yourself.
yeah. I'm so proud of that documentary. I mean, something I learned was, I mean, I saw my life in sort of a broad brushstroke of like, the way Julie Cohen, the director, arranged and edited like each of our stories with such care, and being able to see like the scope of like, through pictures and archival footage and images of my actual life. I was like, yeah, that happened. Like, you always think of your life as like this, like it's like a projection in your head, and you can see it when you imagine your life in your head. But to actually see it on screen and then have people see it on screen, I one of the most surprising things about that movie was that, random people will message me about it, or see it on a plane, or like just however they find the movie, have see it and talk about how moved they are and talk about um, how this should be required viewing for all queer people, for all prospective parents, for all like schools. Like it really reminds me of how documentaries can really like crack something open and be so revealing in that way. At the same time, there is like a little bit of hmm, what's a politically good way to say this? Frustration, I guess, at the fact that like not everybody watches documentaries, and to the degree that people have talked about how necessary it is, and the fact that it hasn't, had its moment in like popular discourse. I think it will probably be very eminent um, because of what the discourse is around gender in this country right now for whatever TikTok person to be like, well, have you seen? And then like, people start like whatever about it and like talking about it. But it's kind of it's really weird that like you have to rely on a certain virality of for work to actually like be seen by people or like huge marketing dollars to like make it like be very visible but yeah, I'm it's a project that I'm so grateful to have been a part of because of the ways in which it handles gender in an aspect that hasn't been looked at before. And I think right now it's so crucial that people uplift intersex voices because all these trans bills that are being passed to ban gender affirming care, to ban um, trans people from existing essentially, they all have loopholes to make sure that intersex kids are still having these procedures and are still being operated on and are still receiving hormones to normalize them to maintain a gender binary. And a lot of people don't know that. So intersex and trans issues are interrelated issues. They're parallel conversations. And it's still something that we're not talking about because we're focused on trans issues. And as a person who identifies as both, um, there's only so much like I could I could just say this over and over again that I'm just like someone else has to say it. I made another movie about it, so like you know what I mean. And I definitely to answer your question more about like the personal level of the work, I think it's something that in my next project that I'm working on, I'm like. Um, I kind of came in hot with like talking about gender and like my own personal life in that way. That for my next project, I'm realizing like the sustainability of something being so personal. It's not sustainable, and I have to like, and I'm pivoting a little bit into more of a maybe like emotionally autobiographical, but more fiction in my next work.
And I mean, and to your point, River, of like this film, even though it was made in 2023, and but you've mentioned in which is like only 2 years ago, that it came
Crazy.
out. We think of films like, Paris is Burning. When it came out, it took a long time. Like the girls
Yeah,
that knew, right? Like,
right.
that film was happening, but it's not until like now recently, like you have words that come directly from that film that people don't even know the history of certain languages that they are now using, right? And so you're ahead, River. You continue to be
Period.
ahead of the curve. And
Period.
so,
Period.
let's talk about your Pony Boy. Listen, I walked out of that theater at Sundance last year, like just feeling the vibe of, like I don't even know how to explain this movie. I'll let you talk about it, but just so that folks know, this film, it came out. You actually had a shorter version of Pony Boy,
Yeah,
but tell us
yeah.
tell us more about how did it go from your imagination to Sundance to a now upcoming theatrical release across the US? That is exciting. But can you tell us a little bit like how did that process go?
Yeah, it started actually as a theater piece that I made when I was in NYU,
Wow.
as an actor, just like in theater school. And the play, or it was more like a performance art piece. It always revolved around this one character, which was this like queer, gender non-conforming sex worker in New Jersey. Like that was always the core of it. And then after I made two iterations of this play, one was a 10-minute piece, and then another was a 40-minute like thesis play. Um, then I made it into this very bizarre short film that never saw the light of day, except I used it as my sample to go to film school, and then I was accepted. And when it came time to create my thesis film at USC, in the graduate film program, I just had spent 2 years in that school, actively trying to not be myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to really be myself in this like last moment and really just put all the cards on the table. And so I revisited what now what I then called, well, it had a different name before, but what I now called Pony Boy. And I was like, okay, great. And now I will also insert a bit of my own narrative around the discovery of being intersex and stuff. And it was through the writing of that short that I realized that the variation and condition that I was born with, being born with absent testes, was an intersex variation. And I was like, okay, great. Like, this is crazy. And I think it's time for me to address this in my work. And so I made this film, and it went to many festivals, and it was, really, really beloved, wherever it went. And I always knew that I wanted to make a feature version of it. And so that was in 2019 that it went to festivals. We made it in 2018. And yeah, then during the pandemic, I wrote it as a feature, and then got producers involved, and then we shot it in 2022, and then we went to Sundance last year, and it was like, it's crazy for it to have started in theater 10 years ago and then to end up like here, because I don't know. I think of the work of like Phoebe Waller-Bridges or Michaela Coel, of just, yeah, people who started in theater and made theatrical works that then influenced their careers in film and TV. And it feels really humbling to be part of that legacy where theater, figuring something out in the embodied medium of theater, led to this foundation that allowed me to explore this character in the medium of of the screen and of cinema. And I it's crazy to make peace with the ways it's changed, and in some ways incredible ways, in other ways I'm like, damn, I miss the kind of weirdness of what it was when it was that performance art piece, or even the short film, or um but it's also just a blessing to be like, hey, like, this is a collaborative medium, and the more you go through it, the more iterations. Like, I really believe, like, um what's her name, Elizabeth Gilbert, in Big Magic, she talks about how like the art pulls the people that it needs, and it pulls the resources. Like, it just attracts the things that it needs to come to existence. And I really think that about Pony Boy, and I think that about all work, that at a certain point it's so beyond me, and I'm just kind of like the vessel, the yeah, the what's it called?
You're the vessel to tell this beautiful story. And the
Yeah.
yeah, the no, I get you. And it's just watching this film and the cast. Come on, you have India Moore, Victoria Pedretti, Dylan O'Brien, Murray Burlett from Looking. I was like, oh my God. Like the casting of the movie, it's just perfect, right? Like sometimes you should see a movie and the cast just makes sense. And just congratulations for this next part of Pony Boy. How are you celebrating that? Like it's how do you get ready for this movie to be, across the whole country?
A lot of emails and a lot of I mean, like I'm a Capricorn rising, so I'm just like at the end of the day, I'm like, let's get the I mean, it's in a way it's producing again. That's what I'm realizing. I'm like, there's actually and I've celebrated and stuff, but like in my mind also there's like actually no time to celebrate because like the work just continues. You think actually that when the deal gets made or when the thing no, it's just at every step of the way there's just more work to do. And I'm finding that the celebration actually really is in the blessing that there is more work to do and that it's not done and that and it's never over. And I say it's celebratory like because this is the life that I wanted. I've always wanted to make an artist and make my life from making art. So how wonderful it is to have an email to send, a call to make because we're making art and not only we're making art, but we're making art so people it can be seen, that it can be consumed, that it can be metabolized by other people. And whenever I'm like stressed about the fact that there's more work, I always remind myself that I'm doing this so that it reaches the person that needs to see this. Um, and that's just so cool to know that I can make this weird queer shit that then people somehow believe that it needs to be seen and then and now it's being seen, so
Yeah,
yeah.
and to know it was so as I was watching the film and I was like, oh my God, River, oh my God, like the way that it was 100% recommend this film. Go watch it. Go, please support River. What I know we're wrapping up now our time together, but what you mentioned you were working on something? Is there something you can tell us what you're working on right now?
There's nothing to share.
Can't
There's
say
nothing
that.
to I mean, what can I share?
Still in the movie arena, film stuff.
TV. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking, well, I'm working on my next feature and also a TV idea as well. And so I'm just really excited again to work because yeah, you know what
Word.
I mean? Like especially as you said, like, it's a hard time right now.
Yeah.
Actually, this year I lost um two jobs because of the DEI being stripped from multiple companies. And it's real. Like it's real.
Listen.
Like I could like be like, oh yes, lost that and lost that
Yeah.
because of this as a direct response to that. And so again, I just think like it's it's such a huge win to be able to still have the fortitude to be creative in this world.
Yeah. Well, River, thank you so much for sharing, your gifts with the world. We look forward to all the things that you're doing and working on, and know that at Disruptors, you will always have a home because you were part of the first group, and you were. I see the first group as the co-founders as well of that first like program that
Yeah.
good, and so thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for joining
you.
us today. Please share this video and every. Oh, by the way, where can people find you? Do you want to share your Instagrams and your website?
River Gallo on Instagram and everywhere else. And yeah, that's River Gallo, rivergallo.com.
And please go check out Ponyboy when it premieres on theaters on June 27th, right? 27th?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So thank you so much, River. Please share this video with everyone and subscribe to the Center for Cultural Power YouTube page at The Culture Strike to see this and other videos from our organization. Thank you all so much. Thank you,
Thank
River.
you. Thank
Adios.
you.